Welcome. This is Kickin with Coach K podcast. I am your host, Coach K. We are on episode 30 today here live in the Brain Jerk Studios. Had to take a week off last week. Appreciate you guys for checking out the episodes the week before with Frank and Coach Zimmerman. We obviously see Frank on the sidelines during the fall, and he's the writer for Friday Night Victors. Does a good job. Obviously, a lot of us keep up with Friday Night Victors every single week and kind of the stuff they write. And also Coach Zimmerman, I got to give him some love. If you guys have not watched that episode, it was a great episode. He does a lot for kids, a lot for mental health. He's just big on things outside of just football, right? And I think he's somebody who truly embodies that. So make sure you go check those episodes out. That was the last time. That was 2 weeks ago. So if you go back a couple weeks here, you can find both of those shows, again, on the Brain Jerk page. This show is brought to you by Brain Jerk Entertainment, Kennedy Health and Wellness. Brain Jerk Entertainment, welcome to the Brain Jerk era. Make sure you guys subscribe on YouTube and make sure you guys follow these guys on Facebook. These guys go live for the morning show on Mondays. We got our show on Sundays. They've got the wrestling podcast. There's all types of shows in this podcast network. It's growing. So make sure you guys check it out. Again, these guys also take place in various events throughout the community. They just did the Fill the Truck event at St. Mary's Park last week. So shout out for that, fellas. They were a big part of that as well. So you guys can find these guys on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Their Instagram has a lot of stuff, clips from previous events that they've taken part in, whether it's been the wrestling events, stuff they've helped us out with leadership summits and different things. So these guys truly do a lot. You can also catch these guys around town. You can catch Coach Josh, producer Josh. You can catch him around town, kind of watching and taking clips of different football games and sports games throughout the year. So just doing a lot in the community as always. Kennedy Health and Wellness is your one-stop shop, everything wellness from body care to candles. Again, shout out to my wife. Got to give her love every single week. She is taking care of basically everything in the business at this point, other than I just kind of help her market that thing. But she does a great job. Fall just hit, so all of our fall scents and specials are out now. Make sure you visit us at kennedyhealthwellness.com or Krebs Apple Barn in LaSalle. We have several sponsors of this show today that I have to give some love to. Not only are they big for what we do here, but they're big in our community for what we're doing. And also, several of these sponsors support our student athletes. I have to put that out there. There's some weeks I kind of forget to mention that, and I want to make sure I make that a point that not only are these businesses doing great things in the community and great things for this show, but they also do a lot for schools and student athletes, whether it's some of these businesses have done Lifter of the Month gift cards for us. They've done different things to partner with for fundraisers for different schools. They've offered their space for athletes to train, all types of different things, right? MCSN, covering sports, All Hard Athletics, everything they do. So we'll start with them. Monroe County Sports Network, All Hard Athletics, Amaya's Fresh Mexican Grill, The Little Brown Jug, Lane's Pizzeria, IWR, Jazzy Steak Burger, Nerdy Designs, 1817 CrossFit, Big Back Prep, and Backroad Baggers. Our quote of the day: the champion makes his own luck, and that's by Earl Blake. So that's just something that I think more and more, the older I get, the more I'm around coaching, the more I'm around development, whether it be in business, student athletes, professionally, all these different areas. You don't wait for things to happen for you. You make them happen. All right. And that's just kind of why we chose this quote today. So go out there, make things happen for yourself instead of letting them happen. And the champion makes his own luck. Our read of the week is David vs. Goliath by Malcolm Caldwell. This is obviously a story of the underdog overcoming and taking out, the against all odds, right? We saw this yesterday. Colorado beat TCU in a huge upset. Shout out to Coach Prime. That's my guy. And Colorado and everybody over there, a bunch of players who did their thing. They got a team full of dudes over there. And that was a true David versus Goliath story. And we got to watch that in live as Colorado took down TCU. That was exciting. So today, before we dive into a couple things, we're going to get to our coaches corner first. And then we're going to dive into just some thoughts on football so far and just kind of catch up on some of the things going on in high school football in our area, just some general thoughts. And then also, I'm going to kind of give you guys a little end of the show college football preview here. I know we're a little late as some games have already kind of went on, but I don't think anything that I predict today will be something that was like fully shaped by yesterday or even mostly shaped. And I have some pretty bold takes that I think, might get some people conversation starters, might be something that somebody can message me and start a good little argument back and forth, little conversation, just some thoughts. That's what's fun about college football, right? We're all fans of these teams and these student athletes, and it's fun to just kind of put your opinions out there and have fun talking about it and rooting for your team. So our coach's corner today, work and don't get caught up in the highs or the lows. So this is something lately within sports, coaching, within business, all my aspects of life. I have found this. This is why I chose this today. I have found this to continuously keep popping up, and I keep seeing examples of it. As human beings, as student athletes, we tend to, when we win or we have a great moment, we make a great play, we tend to be so far up that sometimes there's lapses, right? Or sometimes we can't be consistent with it. And it's the same with the lows. We tend to let one play or one game kind of beat us into the next play or the next game. And it's the same in business. Sometimes businesses will let a bad month lead to 2 or 3, or they'll have such a good month. And that's how you kind of know the difference, right? In good business owners, good coaching and those different things is like, how do you handle those highs and those lows? So don't get caught up in the highs or the lows. Stay level-headed and just keep working. Remember, especially during sports seasons, there's a mountain you're trying to climb. There's a tournament at the end of your season. You're trying to stay healthy. You're trying to have success during the season, and then you're trying to make a run. And there's a mountain that you have to climb throughout. So, you can't let 1 week or one play last forever. You have to have a short memory, and the work has to be continuous. So that's our coach's corner point of today. So just a couple things real quick, just general thoughts on high school football in our area after catching up with some of the teams, some coaches that are friends, some different things around the county, and just some general thoughts that I want to give today. We have a couple contenders here in Monroe County, and I just talked with producer Josh and Josh from Brain Jerk about this before the show. And, we got a couple teams out here that they look really, really good right now. And they look like they are potentially teams that could make a deep run. And there's still some teams that you can't sleep on yet, right? There's still some teams we're only 2 weeks in. There's still some teams that I think are undetermined that could really make some noise and really make some great runs. Obviously, I'm going to be a little biased, right? And say, we're going to rebound nice and the Eagles and, the team we just played this past week, Dundee, and Flat Rock should still have a very nice season, and Milan's 2-0. And, there's some teams that look like they're real contenders. And then there's some teams that definitely look like they could form into that and make some noise. And I think that's exciting. We talked about this throughout the show. I think it was last week with Frank about how good Monroe County football looks to be this year. And I just think the first few weeks of the season, we've kind of seen that, right? I think we've seen a handful of teams in the county that are 2-0 or 1-1 that look pretty good, that look really, really good. And we've got a handful of real contenders out here in Monroe County. So I think that's awesome. It's been incredible. We've had some great performances. I want to say that, some great individual performances. Shout out to my guy, Cole Krieger. He got the MCSN Student Athlete of the Week 1. He had a great game against Jefferson, and I know from week 2 they're doing votes right now. I'm not really sure what the vote is. We have our own Student Athlete of the Week that we'll be giving away today at the end of the show. But there's been some incredible performances, 4 or 5 touchdowns from QBs, 3 touchdowns and 10 plus tackles. There's been, multiple receptions or several receptions, double-digit yardage. I mean, it's just been crazy. We've had some really, really, really awesome dudes here in Monroe County, and they've been performing well. And it's been really awesome to watch, man. And just, again, I'm here as a coach, right? And I love my school. I love Erie Mason. I love where I coach. But I always, other than the Fridays you play us, I always want to see the teams in the county do really, really well. And I think seeing all the success thus far has been exciting. So a lot to be excited about. We got some dudes here in Monroe County. I think there's more. There's better football here and more athletes here on the gridiron than there's been in a long, long time. I don't know if that's a hot take. I coached downriver before this, and I was young before that. So I don't know if that's a hot take, but I just feel like there's a ton of student athletes right now and a ton of people on the gridiron that are really, really good. Football in Monroe County is off to a good start, and I think it's just going to continue on. To be honest, one of my thoughts from high school football as well is we still need spring ball in some form. We've got a lot of kids at different games with different health cramps and different things going on. And they need to be bought into the weight room and all that as well. But there is an element of getting some football in the spring that would eliminate some of the health risks that are happening right now. And just teams being in better form, right? Knowing how to tackle better, knowing how to block better, knowing how to get their head across, knowing how to do all these different things. I feel like I'm still seeing it. Lots of evidence that spring football would definitely help. And again, that's not just in the games I've coached. That's the games I've watched. That's film I've watched. That's all the different things I've heard. That's just everything kind of put together, right? Is just that's kind of the conclusion right now. Is it would still definitely help. We're going to continue to talk about that on this show, is bringing spring football to Michigan, because it's something that, when you have when you're a coach or you have a voice or you have a following on social media or you have a podcast, whatever it is, and there's something you feel strongly about, right? You talk about it and you push it. And there's a lot of us that are in this that feel strongly about it, student athletes. We've had student athletes on that have talked about it, how much it would help them. We've had college coaches on this show that have talked about how much spring ball would help high school and would get them kids ready for college and all these different things. I've had this talk several times, but we're just going to continue on that thought as it's just kind of been evident. So to move on, we're gonna get on to some college football stuff today. And I wanted to do this episode a little earlier, but we had the doubleheader that I thought was a great way to kind of kick off football season with Coach Zimmerman and Frank. And then last week we had the week off, and then this week's kind of the best week to do it and get it out of the way before all the games really kick off. So we're just going to kind of talk about a couple things. But first off, I think the only thing that might have swayed my opinion on some things this year was Colorado yesterday. Colorado looked really, really good. They had a handful of guys that looked like they were the best players on the football field, and that's against a team that went to the national championship last year. Dylan Edwards, Travis Hunter, and I know I'm forgetting Shador Sanders, and I know I'm forgetting the other guy. But they looked extremely good yesterday, and I know it's going to be hard for them to duplicate that every week, but I do think, whereas maybe I thought that was a 5-6 win team, I think the only thing that I really changed my opinion on since kind of even during spring ball, to be honest, and after kind of seeing transfer portal stuff, is Colorado's probably more like a 7-8 win team. And that's just where they're at after seeing them week one. So I'll just be honest and get that one out of the way right now. That's the one that I would sway my opinion a little bit, and maybe potentially Notre Dame. So Notre Dame, I would have had maybe like an 8 or 9 win team, and Notre Dame's looking more like a 10 win team to me, maybe 11, but 10 for sure. They look good. Sam Hartman's filling in nice, but those two right there, full disclosure, those are two teams I would change my opinion on, just to get that out there, But moving forward, nothing I say in this podcast is something to be transparent with you that I would have had a different opinion on. And I know we don't do these episodes often. Usually we like to talk life and health and our mental health and sports and student athletes and coaching and skills and all this different stuff. But it is kind of fun to kick back sometimes and just talk about this stuff, man, and see if you can stir up a little bit of fun conversation. I was just having some fun conversation earlier with a couple friends about college football. So, and of course we didn't agree because we're not on the same fan bases, but fun stuff. That's what makes football great. That's what makes college football great. So, we'll get into it. So to start everything off, I'm just going to go right away and say that my final four will probably shock everybody. And I don't know if I gave this to Coach Zimmerman last week when I asked him this question. I think I just kind of let him answer it. But my final four for college football this year will probably shock you. The first two will not. It will be Michigan, Georgia. Michigan will run the table. They'll beat Penn State. They'll run the ball all over Penn State. And then they'll beat Ohio State because they have an answer for Ohio State right now, and Ohio State can't seem to figure that out. And Michigan will run the table. Georgia will run the table. They might have a loss and win in the SEC championship or something, but they'll get in. It'll be Georgia, Michigan, and I don't know if this is the exact order, but these are my four. And then I'm going to go with Florida State. And then I think I think Norvell is a great coach. I've always said that. They needed time. That was kind of like the Michigan project, to be honest, where Harbaugh got Michigan when they were kind of in a really bad place and just needed some time to get them to competent, then get them to good, then get them to great, then now get them to excellent. I think Norvell is starting to kind of cross that bridge now into great. So I'm going to take Florida State. And then my last one probably will shock everybody, but I don't want to follow the lead, right? I want to be a little bolder with my prediction. And I do still believe this is not just something that I'm predicting just to do it, but I'm going to go Kansas State. I think Kansas State finds a way. They've got the best coach in the Big 12, arguably. They have a solid defense, quarterback Will Howard. They look like a team on paper and look like a team the last season that was kind of forming into something that I think they could be like TCU last year, where you don't expect it and they win some games and defense wins some games for them, and then Will Howard wins some games for them. But Kansas State is my pick for that fourth spot. I think the championship game will likely be like a Georgia-Michigan matchup, right? Or maybe like a Florida State-Michigan matchup. I do think this is the year, and everybody's going to come at me because everybody knows I'm a Michigan fan, but I do think this is the year Michigan wins it. I think they're on a tear right now. I think everybody saw the free Harbaugh stuff yesterday. I think these guys are playing with a real chip on their shoulder. The chip that Georgia had a few years ago. I think that's the chip Michigan is now playing with. And I think Michigan has a passing game improvement this season throughout, and the defense improves. And I think Michigan just gives too many teams fits, and I think they're able to match up with Georgia and make big plays in that game that they weren't able to make the first time around. I got Michigan winning that game, and probably, like I said, over Georgia if they end up, depending on the seeding, or Florida State. If they play Georgia, I think that game will be close, but I think Michigan will make a few more big plays. If they play Florida State or Kansas State, I think Michigan, I actually think Michigan will beat Florida State without, I shouldn't say without a problem, but I think they will beat Florida State without a doubt in my mind. I think they'll struggle a little bit against State. That's another kind of more big physical team. And I just think, again, I got a lot of respect for the coach over there, Kleinman. So I think Kansas State's one to watch for, but those are my top four, man. So that's kind of how I feel. As far as the Heisman race goes, it's really hard to repeat. Obviously, it's only been done once ever by Arch. But I don't know. You know, Caleb Williams is great. I sometimes think voters in some sports maybe get tired of voting for the same person, if you get what I mean. Like, we want to change the scenery type of deal. So I don't know if Caleb Williams, I don't know if he suffers from that. You know, as far as watching him on the field, he's a star. There's a few guys. But if I was honestly going to pick right now, barring injury, I would say Travis Hunter is the best player in college football and wins the Heisman. And I'll put that out there. And again, full disclosure, things changed for Colorado after watching them yesterday. So I probably would have went Caleb Williams before yesterday. But after watching Colorado and watching Travis Hunter, I probably go Travis Hunter moving forward. I think he's. I don't necessarily know if he looks like Charles Woodson, but he's got that kind of impact, those kind of reps. And he's just all over the field like Woodson was. So I think that's the guy you watch for as far as the Heisman race goes. And I just, as far as a dark horse, I think for the playoffs, I think you got to go Utah. I think if Utah is able to win the Pac-12 and they're able to find a way to get over that hump, which they've kind of been struggling with, right? They always kind of seem to drop a game or two. But I think Utah would be the team that I would say is my sleeper. I could be forgetting somebody. If LSU beats Florida State tonight, obviously my top four is probably off. And LSU could be a sleeper. But I do think in that scenario, that's who I would go with. So just some thoughts. Obviously, most improved team, if we're to talk about one, we're going to go Colorado. I just think based on what they did yesterday, I don't know if you can go against that at all. I don't know if you can argue that Colorado will likely be the most improved team in college football. There's some other teams that I think you have to watch for throughout the season. And there's some teams that we don't know yet, right? Like some lower teams that, I think, and this is probably just being a fan, right? But I think there's teams that we don't necessarily watch as much, right? Like Eastern Michigan, UMass, who I follow because I love their coaches. These teams could have massive improvements, right? Eastern could win the MAC. That would be a huge improvement. That's on the table for them. UMass struggled against Auburn, but that's a bottom feeder team that won their first game of the season. And they're not very successful last year or in previous years. And then there's the teams like Notre Dame, right? And Iowa. Can Notre Dame get over a hump with Sam Hartman? Can Iowa score enough points with Cade McNamara? And then kind of some of them transfers, right? They got off to a hot start yesterday. So there's some teams like that I think you could talk to about most improved, but I think the obvious one would be the Buffs and Colorado and Coach Prime. So again, exciting. College football just kicked off yesterday. So a lot of you guys I saw out there tailgating, enjoying it. Awesome stuff. All the good food, all the good times, good music playing. The atmospheres were awesome. The college football atmospheres. Yesterday, I had one game on the laptop, one game on the TV, one on the tablet, one on the phone, and I was listening to one. So I had like 5 games going at once. It was beautiful afternoon. It was a great way to spend a Saturday. That's how I always spend my Saturdays in the fall. So it was amazing. And speaking of that, we are still going to do this tailgate party. I promise you guys it will come before the end of the season. We still have a few months to make sure we get that wrapped up and done. It's been busy. Obviously, high school football takes priority and takes up a lot of time, but I promise y'all we will still deliver on that. We got just a few minutes left here on a shorter show today. We will be back next week with Mike Torchia. So he was a former NHL goalie. I hope I said his name correctly. But we actually have our first hockey guy on, so that's incredible. I'm excited for that. But again, Mike is a former NHL goalie. We'll have him on. He's going to share his story. I'm going to ask him a ton of questions. I love hockey, but I kind of love it from a distance, right? So I don't watch every game. I don't know all the rules. I love going to a game, watching the live action, watching it go fast, watching the fights, watching all that different stuff. I think that hockey atmospheres are exciting. But just like baseball, when we have a baseball guy or a softball gal on, I love to kind of have those conversations and pick their brains apart. We're going to pick Mike's brain apart on what it was like to be professional, what it's like to play hockey, everything we can think of. We're going to ask Mike questions next week. It's going to be a great show. Our student athlete of the week we actually have 2 of them. So I do a little research on this, whether it be our sponsors, MCSN, shout out to you guys. I do a little bit of research through them and then also through just looking up games. And then the third thing I'll do is look up the Monroe scores and Monroe news. And these are the 2 names that came up this week. So, and their stats, their numbers, they go behind it. I also think this is just a rule of this show, and no disrespect to anybody else, but you cannot lose and get nominated for a player of the week. That's not how this works. If you lose, you won't be nominated, unfortunately, even if you have a great performance. So our student athlete of the week will be Jack Mills, Airport football. He had 4 touchdowns and 10-plus tackles. Airport moved to 2-0 with a huge win over Riverview, and they were led by Jack Mills. He's our student athlete of the week. And our other student athlete of the week, I hope I don't butcher this name. I believe it's Kian Clausen. Game-winning goal for SMCC as they beat undefeated Airport in soccer. So incredible to knock off an undefeated team. Game-winning stuff. That's always awesome. That's why we had to give 2 out this week. To be honest, big-time players make big plays. And obviously these 2 made big plays all day. So shout out to those 2 for being the Kicking It with Coach K podcast student athletes of the week. On this day, 1881, the first national championship men's tennis match. 1881. Some of these dates, I literally will kind of sit there and genuinely wonder in 1881 what it was like to try to play tennis. I know they didn't have tennis courts yet, so I don't even know what it would have looked like back in that time. But I always try to visualize, and it's kind of crazy to me that that's the day when we had our first national championship tennis match. Richard Sears won. So if you want to look up Richard Sears, you might be able to find some information on him, but he was the first men's national champion. In 1994, Miami routs Southern Georgia 56-0, breaking the record, the NCAA record, with its 58th straight home win. So Miami, the U, routs Southern Georgia 56-0, breaking the NCAA record with its 58th straight home win. That's a lot of wins at home. That's home cooking, man. That means when you're at home, you ain't losing. And then the last one, because we could not leave this one out. Again, this is huge. We're in football season and volleyball season, of course. But football season, as this kind of pertains to, in 1995, both the Panthers and the Jaguars, Carolina Panthers, Jacksonville Jaguars, make their NFL debut, and they both lost. And I can't remember the score, but I don't believe either of those games were even close. But in 1995, again, the Carolina Panthers that we know today and the Jacksonville Jaguars that we know today both make their debut and lose. And that's my dark horse for the NFL this year, by the way, is the Jacksonville Jaguars. And that sucks to say that because I'm a Tennessee Titans fan. But that is my dark horse to make some noise in the NFL this year. So we're going to drop some links, and then we will see you guys next week with, again, we're going to bring on a great guest next week. Make sure you guys tune in 5 o'clock sharp. Kennedy Health and Wellness on Facebook and Instagram, and KennedyHealthWellness.com. Brain Jerk Entertainment on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. You can find this podcast on Kicking It with Coach K. That's on Facebook or Instagram. We have a page specifically for this podcast. I'm working on updating stuff. We're working on getting some merchandise rolling, T-shirts. Some of you guys might have seen these, but we have stickers for the show. If you're interested in any of this stuff, let me know. We're going to start posting that again to the Facebook and Instagram and tagging Brain Jerk, sharing it with Brain Jerk as well. You can find Coach K, myself. You can find me at Coach K 1993 on Instagram. And next week, again, you can find us at 5 o'clock with Mike Torchia. He will be joining us. We appreciate his time. It's going to be a great episode next week. Thank you guys for tuning in. Episode 30. We look forward to next